You old guy, explain what the hell happened to him. At this time, the patriarch of the Great Luo sword sect turned his head to Fang Hangsen who was beside him, and said. Fang Hangsen also fell into silence at this time. To be honest, he really didn't know what happened to Li Wuxiang in front of him. Obviously before, he still had a gloomy face and looked like he might commit suicide at any time. Why is his fighting spirit so fierce now? I don't know either. Maybe this kid has become enlightened. No one can tell. After all, this is his own choice. Once this brat makes a decision, no one can pull him back. That's why things like that happened back then, Fang Hangsen said. Hey, this little guy is just too stubborn, but it's good to see him like this. I just don't know if he will go to my sect to look at those two brats in the future. Yu Jiazong's ancestor also let out a long sigh. Speaking of it, he is the real heartache. That incident at that time ruined two good seedlings, and those two injured guys may be the hope of the sect. But there is no way, whoever called this guy voluntarily followed Li Wuxiang to the withered forest to find opportunities. This withered forest, if it is on the periphery, it is still very safe, but these guys who don't know how to live or die actually ran to the deepest part of the deepest place, but there are 4 heavenly monsters in the deepest place. After all, they paid the price for their youth and recklessness. The 3 disciples of Glacier Valley and their 2 disciples of the royal family died and 2 were injured. Although they are young and frivolous, this is also the charm of their young people. It is this arrogance that brought the 5 of them together and allowed them to go to the withered forest together, but the result is embarrassing. But now that this kid can cheer up, that's naturally good. The 2 guys in my sect are talking about this little guy Li Wuxiang every day. If he cheers up, maybe those 2 guys will be very happy. Be happy. The patriarch of the imperial sect let out a long sigh. To put it bluntly, the 2 of them are dedicated to themselves, and for their heart failure, they are trying their best to train younger generations. The result is about to come out. Doesn't know who will win and who will win this battle. That little fellow of your great Luo sword sect who specializes in Asura sword Dao is not easy, said the old woman of Liuli sect. Even if this little guy is not simple, so what? He was crushed by that little guy Li Wuxiang back then, so that his Xinsheng was greatly affected. However, after this battle, maybe everything that weighed on his heart will be resolved, and his own cultivation will also improve rapidly. The ancestor of Da Luo Jianzong also sighed at this time. If it was the person with the highest talent among the Lun sect, it would definitely not be the Wang Shu in front of him. But the way of swords practiced by Wang Shu is the most difficult and the most lethal. Once he has achieved great success in cultivation, then he will become the most terrifying sword cultivator in the world. The Shura swordsmanship is enough to make any swordsman feel terrified. It is also because of the Asura sword Dao. The effort required to achieve great success in cultivation is very huge, and it requires more effort than others to achieve great success in cultivation. At this time, the gunpowder smoke dissipated, and the terrifying atmosphere also subsided slowly. The scene in front of him only saw Wang Shu standing on the ground holding the jet black long sword in his hand. His body was straight and his eyes were cold like never before. On the other hand, Li Wuxiang was half kneeling on the ground at this time, and he was struggling to support his body with the long sword in his hand. It seems that without the support of this long sword, his body would collapse. But he still raised his head, with a very strong belief in his eyes, staring at Wang Shu in front of him. Li Wuxiang, you lost. This battle is over, and I am the one who won this battle. Wang Shu raised the long sword in his hand, and a sharp sword intent emerged. His method seems to be forcing Li Wuxiang in front of him to admit defeat, because he doesn't want to use the last 10 tricks again. After all, this is just a competition. He is not willing to take someone's life in front of so many people. No, I haven't lost yet, I can still stand up. Li Wuxiang supported his crumbling body, and spoke with difficulty. He stood up slowly, staring at the gift in front of him, as if his eyes were firmer than ever before, and now he seems to have understood what he needs to do. Don't you understand? You have already lost. If you continue to fight, your life will be lost here. Wang Shu roared. Although the result of the move just now was a judgment call, but at this moment he couldn't be happy at all. Li Wuxiang in front of him didn't seem to admit defeat at all. This guy seemed to be fighting him to the end. I said, if I want to win, I want to drive me down, unless my life is taken away, don't you understand? Li Wuxiang roared angrily. This was an explosion of faith that had never been seen before, and a terrifying power of ice emerged from his body. That terrifying ice force was so powerful that even the surrounding space would be frozen. Fang Hangsen, who was watching from above, was also a little shocked at this moment. One of the most powerful killer moves of my Glacier Valley, frozen 10,000 miles. When did this kid cultivate? There is no reason. This guy has been passive for hundreds of years. How could he do this? Recruited. Fang Hangsen's face was shocked at this moment. This is a very powerful technique in their sect, and it is very harsh to practice. For the releaser, this move requires the release of the absolutely powerful power of ice, otherwise this move cannot be used come out. At this time, Wang Shu also felt that the scene in front of him seemed a bit uncomfortable. He immediately stepped back, but his feet seemed to be fixed in place. He just wanted to take the next step to break the restrictions under his feet, but then the power of ice had attached to his body, completely blocking his whole body's movements. He has now turned into an ice sculpture, and the martial arts arena is also covered with frost. The disciples of Ice River Valley were also very shocked when they saw this powerful force of ice. This ultimate move is very powerful. As long as it is within the range of release, he will definitely not be able to escape the fate of being frozen. Wang Shu was also a little stunned at this time. He concentrated his sword intent and wanted to find a way to break through the ice restriction in his body, but how could the restriction of this blow be lifted so easily? Li Wuxiang in front of him spit out blood after releasing this move. But the firm will still emerged in his eyes. He clenched the blue long sword in his hand, and stared at Wang Shu in front of him. The sword in his hand seemed to have sensed the fighting spirit in his body, and it was emitting an ice-blue cold light at this time. The last move, this battle is over, Li Tianxiang said angrily. Extreme ice-shattering aircut. As Li Wuxiang's sword crossed the sky, the extremely powerful ice power began to emerge slowly, and a slash directly attacked Wang Shu in front of him. At this time, Wang Shu finally broke free from the restriction of his upper body, but his feet were still tightly entangled by the power of the ice, and he couldn't make any further advances, which meant that he could only. You guys are really surprising. Today is really a bit of a surprise. Have you finally found yourself? Then this battle will completely determine the outcome. At this time, Wang Shu didn't have any fear of the blow in front of him at all. Sura Sword Soul Extinguisher. A terrifying sword intent gathered in his hand at this moment, and the black long sword in his hand seemed to be induced, and began to tremble with excitement. Although his body was restricted, everyone present was astonished by the incomparable aura of the sword as he swung it down vigorously with both hands. It has already reached such a point. Is it still possible to break free and launch the last move? Are these guys still human? One by one is so horrifying, we can only be beaten down mercilessly. Some of the disciples below had decadent expressions on their faces. Sure enough, only after seeing the real gap, can they understand that they are not qualified to compare with each other. After these two attacks collided with each other, the martial arts arena was actually split into two at this moment. This powerful shockwave caused some disciples under the arena to be slightly affected. One side is the ultimate power of ice, and the other side is the most terrifying Shira swordsmanship. After the two collided with each other, the breath produced caused the clouds in the sky to be divided into two, and spread towards both sides. After the powerful shockwave passed, everyone looked at the arena. They wanted to see who was the winner of this war. It is Li Wuxiang who has been decadent for many years, and once he wakes up, he wants to fight for a seat and risk his life to make moves. Or that Wang Shu who specializes in Asura swordsmanship, whose sword intent is terrifying, and whose moves are all big moves. After the gunpowder smoke dissipated, only Li Wuxiang in front of him was completely collapsed on the ring. But his eyes were still open. He worked hard, struggled with his body, and finally sat on the ring. But Wang Shu in front of him seemed to have completely lost consciousness, and this move seemed to have exhausted him. Li Wuxiang looked at Wang Shu in front of him with a complicated expression at this moment, and said, "It's finally over. You guys are really persistent. Have you never forgotten this incident for so many years? Has losing to someone like me already made you almost have demons?" Li Wuxiang took elixir, and his breath recovered a lot, while Wang Shu in front of him was still in a coma at this time. Li Wuxiang walked over, but he didn't pick up the azure blue long sword in his hand. He stuck it directly on the ground. After he walked over, such a pill was fed into Wang Shu's mouth. Wang Shu's breath recovered a lot. He slowly opened his eyes, and saw Li Wuxiang sitting beside him. There was a miserable look on that face, and he spoke. "After all, I still lost. I didn't expect that I would give up everything, but I still couldn't beat you. I was a few realms higher than you, but I still couldn't beat you." At this time, Wang Shu wanted to get his body up, but found that there was no trace of memory on him. Although the elixir thread just now restored his spiritual power a lot, it was still difficult to restore his body freely. "Yeah, but you guys are really, actually remembering such a thing for so long," Li Wuxiang said. "After all, you have been on my head for so long, so I can never forget it. Just when I was eager to challenge you again, you really showed such a weak face on your face. Expression," Wang Shu said. "The matter has come to this point. I did lose, but today, it's all over," Wang Shu said. Then, from now on, I will continue to challenge you until you lose to me, Wang said. At this time, he seemed to have found his own belief, and at this moment, all the shackles on him seemed to be cut off. No problem, as long as you come, from now on, I won't be as weak as I am now, Li Wuxiang said. Because he has also found his motivation to live, because he has also seen hope. The battle between the two ended thereupon. After a short rest, Li Wuxiang in front of him also recovered some strength. He looked at the crowd under the stage and yelled words domineeringly. Said. Who else wants to come up and try? Then hurry up. If anyone thinks that I am seriously injured and you can overcome it, then hurry up and take action. I don't want to waste time on this, I have more important things. But after these words, all the people below fell into silence, because they knew that this guy was a ruthless character. This guy is desperate to let himself occupy this seat today. Su Han looked at Li Wuxiang, who had completely recovered his faith at this time, with a positive smile on his face. This guy is really good. If it weren't for the hundreds of years of depression that delayed him, I'm afraid he would be stronger now. But this is not important anymore. In the future, this guy will probably never show that cowardly expression like before. Su Han sighed. Finally, he pulled this guy back from the edge of the cliff, from the brink of committing suicide. And the Wang Shu of the Great Luo sword sect who was fighting against him was also a ruthless character. After this battle, I am afraid that his path of swordsmanship will be smooth sailing. The only thing that weighed on his mind has been completely resolved. Although he lost, the inner demons that affected his swordsmanship are gone, and his Shira swordsmanship will become stronger and stronger in the future. The two little guys are very good, Wang. Seeing that the battle above the arena was over, all the people below felt very shocked. The connection between these two people can be said to be in the dark, with all kinds of moves, so intense that they almost couldn't take their eyes away. It was the first time he had seen someone who could use the unique knowledge of his own sect to such an extent. Li Wuxiang is sitting on the ring now, although his aura is a bit weak, and it can be seen that his strength is only 30% to 40% left. At first, no one dared to go up, because this guy had a firm belief in his eyes. It made them all terrified. He couldn't figure out why Li Wuxiang in front of him had to pay such a high price to occupy this seat. What could bring him back to life? Obviously before, everyone present still saw him, with the gloom in his eyes that cannot be erased by old clothes. But in that instant, the strong light in his eyes was enough to make all of them tremble with fear. If they were not prepared for a desperate fight, they would not dare to go up and compete with Li Wuxiang in front of them. This guy is really an out-and-out lunatic. As for this, for such a seat, do you even have to risk your own life? There was a monk below, swallowed his saliva, and said. This is probably the first time I have seen people with such crazy beliefs. Such a seat can be very important to them, but it cannot be more important than life. You must know that as long as their lives are still alive, their cultivators have unlimited possibilities, but for such a seat, what can they do even if they enter the ancient burial god realm? What if he didn't get any good things in it, and what if his efforts this time turned into nothingness? Then is there any point in competing for this seat? They really don't understand. Is there anything more important than life? Who else? Hurry up. I don't want to waste my time with you, but if you come up, unless you can take my life away, you can't take this seat today. There was still a little blood on Li Wuxiang's face, and his eyes seemed to become sharper. The fierce light in his eyes made the monks below tremble. Such a vicious person made everyone below lose interest in this seat. After an incense stick of time, if no one dares to come up, it will be regarded as a success, and the seat this time will belong to him. There was an elder beside him who spoke at the right time. This sentence also awakened the disciples below, but the moment they met Li Wuxiang's cold and cruel gaze, their bodies seemed to be frozen. There was no thought of going up to compete with the lunatic in front of him at all. It's terrible. This lunatic is really terrible. Are all the people in Glacier Valley so crazy? Forget it. Forget it. Let's not bother him anymore. At best, we can compete with others, but if we fight this lunatic, it will kill us, so we better not go. Although they know that opportunities are unique, they cherish their lives even more. If the other party is desperate, then you have to weigh it, whether you have the ability to withstand his life-threatening fight. So, I took this seat. Do you have any objections? Li Wuxiang looked at the elder next to him. His face was still very cold, but there was a firm light in his eyes. Okay, now, there are 5 disciples who have won seats, and next, you little fellows have to think about it carefully, because now there are only 5 seats left. The elder over there said. At this time, Li Wuxiang walked around the ring with weak steps, passing through the crowd. The people next to him all gave him his way, because this is the etiquette for a strong man. They had no reason to dare to block Li Wuxiang in front of them. If they really pissed him off, and he came up to fight with them, they might not be able to bear it. Just like that, The disciples behind also gave way tacitly, and Li Wuxiang walked slowly in front of Su Han at this time. I have done what you asked me to do, and I hope you can keep your promise. Li Wuxiang went straight to Su Han and spoke to him. His words are full of hope, and his eyes are shining with hope. He has never been so eager for a person's help, eager for him to fulfill his promise, as he is today. His behavior made him feel very ridiculous. After all, he was a proud person before, and he always believed that only by being strong can he solve any problem. But this reality gave him a heavy blow. The wrong decision he made caused great harm to the people around him, and he finally experienced a sense of powerlessness. However, this unique opportunity, this possibility with only a glimmer of hope, he must definitely seize it. The other party even said that he can help him heal his companion, and has revealed his identity to him, so he must seize this opportunity to make up for the mistakes he made. Of course, I always keep my word. After 3 days, you will come to Yao Yanzong to seek me for the elixir. Remember, don't break the contract, Su Han said. It is naturally better to be able to awaken Li Wu's hope for life and his desire for cultivation. It was finally time to deal with this guy, and he was really afraid that this guy would be completely overwhelmed, because he could see from the other person's eyes that he had completely lost hope for life. His eyes were full of guilt and depression, and he wanted to stimulate him with words, but it didn't work. This guy was completely numb. Fortunately, I was able to refine the Tiantinlian good fortune pill, so that I could give Li Wuxiang a glimmer of hope and rekindle his fighting spirit. Okay, eat this elixir, go back and recover well. After all, you will enter the ancient burial god realm after this, Su Han said. Can I not go? This sentence made Su Han in front of him very confused. Why don't you want to go? Su Han asked. I just want to be with my 2 companions, and I don't want to do anything else, Li Wuxiang said. A little sadness suddenly appeared on his cold face, and his eyes were full of guilt. You really make me helpless. Among so many people I met, you guy is the most difficult to deal with, Su Han said with a broken face. After curing their injuries, what do you think? Is it just to stay with them for the rest of your life? This can make up for your mistakes? Su Han said. There is no other way, this is what I owe them, Li Wuxiang said. It seems that this time he encountered a hard stubble, Su Han smiled, but he already has a way to deal with it. Then you don't intend to take revenge, do you? Su Han smiled. There was a little sarcasm and ridicule in that smile. After hearing this sentence, Li Wuxiang in front of him had a murderous intent. In his body, the icy air began to spread rapidly, and even the disciples around him felt that their body was about to be frozen. Those disciples backed away immediately, for fear that the ruthless man in front of them would do some crazy move and affect themselves. You really can't support the wall with mud. The guy who caused you to become like this at the beginning, caused you to lose 2 companions, and damage the foundation of the other 2 companions. Don't you plan to want to seek revenge on him? Su Han said. I don't know, this time I'm afraid I have completely grasped his weakness. The hatred in this guy's heart has now been completely hooked out. As long as he can untie the knot in his heart, then all of this is worth it. After a while, the gift in front of him seemed to completely dissipate the coldness in his body, and the killing intent on his face also slowly changed into a deep wave. Powerless, at the same time revealed a bleak smile and said, What's the use? I know the strength of that big monster. I'm just a piece of trash in the shattered realm now. The strength of that big monster is extremely terrifying. It was killed in seconds. I can't win against such a guy, his strength is beyond expectation. On the other side, Yu Jiashong's ancestor looked at Fang Wangyuan with a smile of no minister on his face. What are these 2 guys talking about? But it seems that your disciple suddenly ignited such a terrifying fighting spirit, and it seems to have something to do with Su Xiaoyu, the ancestor of the Yu Jiazong said. It is probably Su Xiaoyu who is willing to help him save the 2 from your sect, but I know that this is not enough for that brat to rekindle his fighting spirit and start practicing again. But now I'm full of guilt. Even after he's cured, he won't practice anymore. Zhongchuan follows those 2 little guys from your sect to make up for his mistakes, Fang Han said. He also let out a long sigh, and couldn't help sighing that the world is impermanent, and he didn't expect that the incident at the beginning would have such a big blow to Li Wuxiang. These little guys are still too young and energetic, and they are no one in their eyes. In the depths of this withered forest, even I have to be a little bit afraid. How could he have the guts to bring a few other people into it to find opportunities? Yu Jiazong the ancestor sighed. Is that big monster really that powerful? Lin Yan asked. That's not the case. After all, Fang Laogui and I joined forces and were beaten out by that big monster. That big monster should be the owner of this withered forest. Where did these 2 boys go to the territory of the big monster? It's not good, so I ran to his territory, the ancestor of the Yu Jiazong said. The two of them have no way to help you Wuxiang revenge, because the strength of that big monster is too strong. Even if they have advanced to the Supreme Realm now, they are not sure whether they can win. After all, after a long time, who knows if that big monster has made a breakthrough. Moreover, his huge body itself is the best weapon. For monsters, their physical body is their biggest reliance, so it is tantamount to saying that Li Wuxiang in front of him wants revenge, which is tantamount to nowhere. If it was the previous fighting spirit, he might be able to take revenge in the future, but with his current state, it is impossible to take revenge. Don't be kidding, you can help me, I am very grateful to you, but that guy is impossible to beat. When Li Wuxiang thought of this, fear appeared in his eyes again, and even his entire face began to become tense. It seems that some bad memories came to mind, but Sophie said with a contemptuous smile on her face. You really let me down. I will give you one more chance at the end, follow me, in which I can guarantee that you will have a chance of revenge in the future. If you don't want to go, then I won't force you. You will stay by your companion's side and be a coward for the rest of your life. Be a husband who dare not even take revenge, and dare not even take up arms again. After finishing speaking, Su Han turned around and left. If this guy could persuade him with words, then persuade him. If he couldn't persuade him, then it would be fate. Then let this guy sink, after all, he has no way to persuade this guy. It was the first time he had seen such a stubborn person. Compared to those disciples whom he enlightened before, they were much more pleasing to the eye at the moment. After hearing this sentence, Li Wuxiang in front of him raised his head, looked at the back of Fu Fuli, and a flash of thought flashed in his eyes. The moment he heard that he could take revenge, a flame called hatred was burning rapidly in his heart. Hatred is the best catalyst. Although he is weak now, this hatred can push him forward, and Su Han is also confident that he will go through hardships in the later stage. He himself should also become mature and stable. If this time there is no way to bring him back to the right path, then let him perish. At this time, Su Han looked at the disciples in front of him, and his eyes gradually emerged. Now he is looking for more places with investment value. A row of information in his eyes flashed instantly, and the luck and talent of those disciples appeared in his eyes one by one at this time. After a long time, he found that there were only a few valuable investment targets. After all, he was already prepared for the top geniuses in this sect. Those who haven't invested yet have to go to the ancient burial god realm to trigger their special events, and then is the best time to invest. Forget it. Let's make plans after entering the ancient burial god realm, Su Han said. But for the following disciples, although most of their luck is yellow and blue, Su Han also gave some pointers. After all, no matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat, and Su Han also left a deep impression on those disciples. Su Han also returned to Lin Yan's side at this time, and he had gained a lot here. The disciple of Da Luo Jianzong was also Wang Shu, who had fought against Li Wu earlier, and he also saw his face clearly. Wang Shu's luck level is golden, and he also has a strong fate. Misery-ridden, this strong fate means that he will have more and more sufferings in the future. More and more challenges are coming to him, and he will fall into the abyss if he is not careful, which has a lot to do with the way of swordsmanship he has practiced. Shura sword Dao is originally one of the most terrifying, lethal and powerful sword arts among all sword arts. However, if you want to practice to great success, you have to experience much more pain than ordinary swordsmanship. This also makes the practitioners of Shura sword Dao, without exception, superior in combat power, because just the suffering they endured, and the character and will they honed in the suffering are enough for them to defeat everyone. However, Wang Shu will also encounter a major ordeal in the ancient burial god realm later on, and this ordeal is likely to bring his kendo career to an end. And this time is the time for Su Han to go out. Thinking of this, a satisfied smile appeared on Su Han's face. Another one is Mo Yu, who came from the lower realm. Su Han noticed their powerful strength, but he will also encounter difficulties in the ancient burial god realm. At this time, there were only 5 seats left, and now there are only 2 left. This also caused those disciples to fall into a frenzied mood. They wanted to stand out and seek greater opportunities for themselves. There are only 2 seats left, but there are so many disciples below, which means that the people behind will explode with more terrifying strength than those in front. Only in this way can he be able to restrain those monks who want to fight back. Zhu Ronger walked into this seat at this time, and the haze on his face had been swept away. The previous feeling of doubting that his talent had reached its limit was completely gone, and he was now full of confidence. Because he found a path that suits him, the words of former Su Han seemed to wake him up. But he doesn't have a heaven and earth spirit fire yet, but it doesn't matter, as long as he can enter the ancient burial god domain, then he believes that with his own efforts, he will be able to find a heaven and earth spirit fire from it, allowing him to improve his strength. Little girl, come down quickly if you are sensible. I don't want to do anything to women. Even if you win, you won't get a good reputation. At this time, a strong man with a knife came up. The people below were all shocked when they saw this guy. Yes, it was because the deterrent power of this big man's appearance was too great. What's more, the big knife on his shoulder also made everyone feel shuddering. The big man walked up to the table slowly. His sturdy body was in stark contrast to Zhu Ronger's petite body in front of him. This guy is Li Shuwen from Wanxiang sect. A disciple beside him suddenly exclaimed at this time. After hearing this sentence, the faces of the people around all twitched. What's the name? This guy's name is Li Shuwen, are you not mistaken? With such a gentle name, you can tell that he is a scholar. How can you get along with this guy? That's right, brother, are you kidding? Is this guy really called Li Shuwen? He looks like a butcher in the execution ground. All the people around were shocked, and the disciple who spoke just now also said with a helpless expression on his face. That's true. I'm not lying. This guy is a disciple of the Wanxiang sect. I don't know where Fang Shangbao went to get such 10 disciples. Although this guy's name is so eloquent, but this guy's physical strength is terrifying. The most disappointing thing is that this guy has a huge talent in sword skills, and the Wanxiang sect is good at using it. There are many people with knives, because they all believe in breaking everything with one force. Thus, even though I like the sword of the 100 soldiers, you can say that this guy is a tailor-made disciple for the Wanxiang sect. The disciple said at this time. But I remember that this guy didn't come just now. Why did he suddenly come up now? He scratched his head at this time and said. Fortunately, I caught up. If I come later, there will be no seats left. This will be embarrassing. After all, that old guy set a goal for me, and I must win a seat. Li Shuwen wiped at this time, wiping the sweat off his own forehead, he said resentfully. Looking at the strong man in front of him, Zhu Ronger felt that his behavior was a little funny. Hey, this little girl in front of you, what are you laughing at? After telling you, hurry up and go down, if I really fight with you, wouldn't it be bullying? Go down slowly by yourself, and find a seat next to it. I don't bully women. If you do this, you, a thin-armed and thin-legged man, will not be beaten. When Li Shuwen saw Zhu Ronger in front of him, a smile appeared on his face, without any fluctuation at all. Instead, it meant to persuade Zhu Ronger in front of him to go on honestly, but those people below had already been shocked by Li Shuwen's strong body. Just the guy's burly body, that dark face, and the powerful aura on his body are enough to shock everyone. But his name made everyone feel very awkward. Such a rough and burly person should have such a gentle name. Anyone who heard it would find it inconceivable. However, they have never heard of this guy's background, because the Li Shuwen in front of him has only risen in recent years. Hey, the big guy in front wanted to persuade me to go down with just a few words. It's not that simple. If you really want me to hand over this seat to you, then do it. At least let me see your strength. It's not enough to just have a mouth. Zhu Ronger said slowly. Hey, you little girl. You really don't know what to do. I'm doing this for your own good, do you know? If I do something at that time, how can you stand up? After Li Shuwen heard this, his eyes opened wide, staring at Zhu Ronger in front of him. Stop talking nonsense. A big man is over there, mother-in-law. You don't look like a man like this. Hurry up if you want to do it. My aunt is waiting for you here. This dawdling appearance is just like a woman. Zhu Ronger looked at Li Shuwen in front of her, and said these words without hesitation. With her hands on her waist, she pointed straight at Li Shuwen in front of her. It was these words that made Li Shuwen in front of him show a hint of anger on his face, but after looking at the other party's petite appearance, he finally suppressed the anger in his heart and said, You really don't know what to do, little girl. Although I don't bully women, there is nothing I can do. The old man gave me a task, that's all. I must have a place here today, or I will be beaten when I go back. As he spoke, he took down the big knife on his shoulder, pointed at Zhu Ronger in front of him and said, I don't bully you either, let you do 3 tricks first. After hearing these words, the corners of the crowd below all twitched. It seems that this guy came up to make a joke. This guy is interesting. Lin Yan also twitched the corner of his mouth at this time, and said. That's naturally interesting. The name is the same as Shusai. He looks like a big and thick man, and he doesn't seem to be very smart. The ancestor of Da Luo Jianzong also looked very helpless at this time. But there is no way, there are so many cultivators in this world, it is understandable that there will be such 2 strange things. By the way, what is the origin of this guy? His name suddenly appeared in the past 2 years, and he looks different. The ancestor of the Yujiazong said. He just saw that Li Shuwen stepped onto the ring and knew that he was not simple, his huge body contained a terrifying force. Although the whole person looked a bit unintelligent, he dared to conclude that Li Shuwen in front of him definitely had terrifying strength. It's just that his operation made everyone around him dumbfounded. How big is this guy's heart if he gives up 3 moves before he fights and checks out the opponent's strength? It's not like this guy doesn't use his brain to think. Come on. Little girl, hurry up and do it. I'm standing here today, and I'll take 3 tricks from you. After the 3 tricks, I should quickly lift you down. Li Shuwen said confidently. You big guy is really confident. Since you are so humble, then I can't live up to your kindness, Zhu Ronger said. Su Han, who was watching from the side, was also speechless at this moment, but he was a little shocked after checking this guy's panel with his heavenly eyes. Name. Li Shuwen, cultivation level, broken 5th level. Luck. Dark gold, with a hint of purple, fate, sanctification of the flesh. Comment. This person came from a deep mountain, and his body contains a trace of Kui ox blood. His physical strength is boundless, and his vitality is extremely tenacious. Before he was born, his parents were framed by an adulterer. Because of the powerful blood in his body, he survived from his mother's womb, and was raised by wild beasts in the deep mountains. Recent encounter. Entering the ancient burial god realm, I found the inheritance of the true monarch of Samsara. The Samsara had long since died, but the true monarch actually left behind and left a trace of his soul in the inheritance. Due to the weakness of the soul, and with a pure heart, Li Shuwen trusted the true Lord of Reincarnation so much in the process of receiving the inheritance that his body was taken away by the true Lord of Reincarnation. After reading this guy's evaluation, Su Han finally understood why this guy didn't look very smart. It is estimated that Li Shuwen's name was given to him by the master who later accepted him as an apprentice. It may be that he lived in the deep mountains and was raised by wild animals, so he thought of giving him such a name, so that he can become smarter in the future. But after seeing this recent encounter, he finally understood that this guy seemed to have really died in his head. But he noticed the true Lord of Samsara. It seems that this guy is also a scourge. Since using this method to keep one's soul in the inheritance, after waiting for the other party to find the inheritance, take away the other party's body, such an evil method. It seems that I will definitely try to prevent this from happening in the future. This guy seems to have great investment value, but how did he get into the ancient burial god realm? Could it be that this time, Zhu Ronger, he can't go? Su Han was puzzled. This time, it was a strong duel between 2 people, which meant that one of them must not be able to go to the ancient god realm. And what happened to him later? It seems that Zhu Rongwu will lose in the next competition. I didn't expect this old guy to really send his disciple here. I heard that this old guy took in a disciple earlier. His disciple's head has not been very bright, and this guy is very reluctant to let his disciple go out alone. But did he really let that disciple come out alone this time? The ancestor of Da Luo Jianzong touched his chin and thought. Oh, could it be that his master has a lot of background? Su Han asked Lin, who was beside him. This idiot's master indeed has some background with us, but back then, there was a huge turmoil in this ancient god domain, and this idiot's master paid a huge price to release this ancient god domain, completely stabilized. We also promised this time that his apprentice will definitely be able to enter it. After all, this is what we owe him, and this is what all monks in the world owe him. It is not too much to let his disciples enter it, Lin said. After this secret was told by him, Su Han also understood, but this guy really doesn't seem to have a bright mind. But after hearing Lin Yan's words, he also felt that this guy was indeed qualified to enter it. After all, his master was seriously injured because he was buried in the ancient god realm. In order to stabilize the ancient burial god realm, and to benefit the monks of various sects, Fu can be said to have paid a huge price. As for what happened and what experience Su Han had, Su Han didn't know, and it was inconvenient to ask. After all, this should be a painful past event. It's just that I don't know who is better than his silly apprentice or that little girl from our sect. Furthermore, his stupid apprentice wanted to give up 3 moves first. It seems that he is really not very clever. If it is on the battlefield, it will suffer a big loss, Lin Yan said immediately. But Li Shuwen in front of him, if he didn't have the protection of his master, if he went out to walk the rivers and lakes alone, he might be eaten alive by the guys behind the scenes. Li Shuwen is too simple-minded, and I am afraid that he will be deceived by those who are interested in him, and he will not even have any pants left. And in the later buried ancient gods, his ending has already explained his tragic experience, which is related to his heart. At this moment, Zhu Ronger looked at Li Shuwen, who was standing in front of him, who didn't take him seriously. There was also a sneer on his face. She let out a cold sigh, and a huge fire phoenix appeared behind her body. The moment the fire phoenix appeared, the whole sky was covered with color. It was a clear day, but now it seemed like the setting sun had descended. And the temperature at the scene also soared dramatically, and all the places below were watching the duel between these two people. Li Shuwen in front of him still didn't care. He looked at the fire phoenix in the sky and said blankly, "Come on. I said I will let you do 3 tricks first, then I will definitely let you do 3 tricks. Hurry up. You guys are really overconfident, so today I will try to see if you guys are really capable." Zhu Ronger sneered. Following his order, a fire phoenix in the sky instantly rushed towards Li Shuwen in front of him. Li Shuwen stood where he was, with no intention of resisting at all. The people below looked at Li Shuwen's arrogant appearance, all of them showed doubts. Could it be possible that this guy is crazy? Isn't he making a move to resist now? Could it be that he really doesn't want to live? I'm afraid more than 80% of the people who were carried by this fire phoenix are unable to resist. And this guy doesn't seem to intend to do anything, he wants to use his physical strength to carry it hard. At this time, everyone watched helplessly as the fire phoenix in front of them fell onto Li Shuwen's body. The moment the two collided with each other, a wave of heat appeared on the entire ground. This wave of heat made the disciples in front of them retreat back uncontrollably, for fear that the flames of the phoenix would affect their bodies. Such an attack, this guy should already be dead. It is impossible for him to survive such an attack. This guy is really not big. Who says it's not? This guy is so arrogant. Zhu Ronger is a long-established strongman in the Yaoyan sect. How can he underestimate the enemy like this? You must know that in this competition, Yao Yanzong has 3 people who stand out. How dare this guy be so arrogant? This guy is really, really unbelievable. Seeing this wave of heat still sweeping across the audience, the people below were all discussing, accusing Li Shuwen of his arrogance in front of him. Everyone knows that the lion fights the rabbit, and he does his best, but this guy looks down on others as soon as he comes up. He doesn't suffer, who can suffer, so everyone present has no sympathy for what happened to him. At this moment, the flames in the arena slowly dissipated, and the thick and powerful feet stepped out from it. That thread of flame seemed to be still spreading on his body, but on that powerful body, this thread of flame didn't seem to be able to cause any injuries, it could only be extinguished. After that, the owner of this foot finally appeared in front of them. Li Shuwen in front of him still had a silly look on his face. He stood on the spot and looked at Zhu Ronger in front of him, with an innocent look on his face. He spoke. "Little girl, this is the first move, and you have 2 more moves to follow. After the 2 moves, I will use my real skills." After seeing Li Shuwen appeared in front of him safe and sound, a kind of monk below was stunned for a moment, and then all of them showed surprised expressions on their faces. This is fake. What is going on with this guy? Why is he so powerful? This Zhu Ronger is the best at using the Tao of Fire, and he has been immersed in it for a long time. It can be said that he is the best among all the young disciples of the Tao of Fire. She is called the second, and no one dares to be the first. But what's the matter with this guy? Can he resist this move just by relying on his physical strength? How could someone be able to do this? This guy is also a monster. Although this guy didn't seem to be as famous as those few before, but I think after this time, I'm afraid he will become famous all over the world. The disciples watching the battle below were all talking about it. On the top, the ancestor of Yu Jiazong also showed a shocked expression on Li Shuwen's face when he saw such a performance, and said, "Is this kid so powerful? He looks stupid, but he didn't expect to have such strength. It's also the first time I've seen him. This kid's strength is extraordinary. This body alone is enough to crush many monks," Fang Hangsen said. "It's really the characteristic of that old guy. That old guy also relied on his strong physical body and his superb sword skills to dominate the entire Tianquan domain back then. If it wasn't for his cultivation being too restrictive, I'm afraid the few of us would have to take a detour when we saw him," said the ancestor of Da Luo sword sect. "Otherwise, that old guy's body has such a strong recovery ability, and is so powerful, it's almost like a cockroach, which is the most annoying. But his apprentice seems to be stronger than him, his apprentice seems to have caught up with him, and his physical body is so strong, and he even mastered a powerful knife technique. This is the true inheritance of that old guy." "Ah," Lin Yan said. He also felt unbelievable at this time. He also had some dabbles in the knowledge of the physical body. Although he was good at using spells, he also highly respected the physical body. And Li Shuwen's master is the strongest he has seen so far in the body, and he is also the furthest. But the apprentice he emerged today seems to be even better than he was back then, and the talent is even more perverted, it's just that this brain is not very good. Ha 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 ha, interesting, it looks interesting this time, but it's not good to deal with this guy too hard. Too hard is easy to break, to deal with this guy. Yiru K just now is the best, your disciple is probably dead," said the old woman. She knows very well that if she fights against such a monster recklessly with his strength and physical body, she will definitely not be able to please him, and she may even be defeated by him with one move, so the best way at the moment is to use some skills to restrain it. After all, Li Shuwen's body in front of him is so powerful, and there are probably few disciples present who can suppress him. The competition now is whether Zhu Rong'er can use his skills to defeat it skillfully, otherwise he will have only one end if he continues to fight hard, and that is ruthless defeat. Zhu Rong'er also reacted at this time. Looking at Li Shuwen with an innocent face in front of her, she was even more angry at this moment. Aren't you disrespecting me a bit too much? You dare to say such things at this time, you don't take me seriously at all. Zhu Rong'er's face was a little gloomy at the moment, and he roared angrily. A pillar of flame suddenly appeared beside him, and that pillar of flame slowly shattered, revealing a fiery red long spear. The moment the fiery red spear appeared, the temperature in the world rose sharply. With his roar, the fiery red spear was directly thrown by him. That speed, like an eagle seeing its prey, is very fast and precise. And that shot was also thrown directly at Li Shuwen's heart in front of him. Li Shuwen was still standing in place at this moment with a face of indifference, but when the spear was about to touch his chest, at that moment, all I saw was that his eyes sank and he exerted a sudden force. Some blue veins began to appear in the bursting muscles of his body at this moment, and that long spear was also caught between his powerful physical body and the reaction force of the powerful force just thrown out. Next, crush thoroughly. Seeing her tricks being ruthlessly crushed by the opponent, Zhu Rong'er was also a little confused at this moment. This guy's physical body was already terrifying to such an extent. This guy blocked most of the attacks with his body alone, and Li Shuwen in front of him showed a relaxed expression after breaking the fiery red spear with his body. He breathed a long sigh of relief and said, "Finally, it's the next step. This move took me a lot of effort. If I don't use some real strength, I might be pierced through my body by this move. Can be ruthlessly driven down. You little girl is really powerful, even stronger than those people I met before. Those guys are all embroidered pillows that don't look useful, and they won't be able to hold on if they use a little bit of strength." Li Shuwen's words made everyone in the audience silent, and they couldn't talk to this guy at all. After taking this trick, she actually said the most murderous words with the most innocent expression. This is exactly Zhu Rong'er in front of humiliation. After Zhu Rong'er heard these words, her face was so gloomy that water was about to drip. She didn't even expect to meet such a guy today. He looked stupid, but he didn't make her feel better when he talked. Although the behavior just now seemed innocent, it was simply insulting her and despising her. The last move, little girl, you have to work hard. If you can't beat me again, then I will use my real skills. If I try to use my real skills, then you have to obediently go down. Li Shuwen said. You guy, this is really annoying, but it's okay. I want to see how hard your body can be. Zhu Rong'er said angrily. Wanhua Fentianyan. Following his roar, a huge fire phoenix suddenly appeared behind him, and that fire phoenix flew into the sky. At this moment, he seemed to have completely replaced the round of brilliant sun above the sky. Immediately afterwards, he waved his wings in the sky, and then only saw some thin red raindrops suddenly appearing in the sky. It was a clear sky, but there were such red raindrops, so everyone was a little puzzled, but the expression of the person who reacted suddenly changed drastically, and he hurriedly backed away. And he yelled, "Hurry up! Zhu Rong'er is angry, he just took out his ultimate move. This move is to bury the body of the guy in front of him. Where is the rain floating in the sky? This is clearly a fireball. If you don't run quickly, something will happen then." When the disciples below heard this sentence, they had to react instantly, and they immediately backed away, for fear that such a movement would affect themselves. As the person just expected, after the drops of red raindrops fell, only then did they see the face clearly. It was clearly a fireball. The fireball fell on the ring, completely piercing through the ring, and when Li Shuwen watched that move, the expression on his face also changed. He finally put away his previous relaxed look and began to calm down. Response. Now he seems to have become another person completely. He no longer has the stupid look before, but more like a beast. He has always been a fierce beast with great strength in his body, but he stomped on the ground with both feet and roared, and the lean muscles of his body were clearly visible at this moment, and the strength of every muscle in his body was mobilized by him. And the red raindrops were dripping on his body at this time, and every drop on his body left a red mark on his body. It seems that his body has suffered huge injuries, but at this moment, he is like a wild beast. He can't feel the slightest pain at all, and there is only endless madness in his eyes. Ha 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 ha, happy, come again. Li Shuwen seemed to be a different person at this time. His eyes were full of coldness. In the next second, the fire phoenix in the sky seemed to have exhausted its strength, and his wings stopped waving, and after a while, it slowly disappeared between the sky and the earth. Ha 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 ha, it's such a pleasure. I didn't expect to encounter such a joyful thing this time. I haven't felt pain for a long time. Except for that old man, there is really no one who can bring me such a joyful feeling. But the old man's knife is too fast, and every time he hits me, he leaves me with many injuries. In comparison, the karma is too much. After Li Shuwen resisted move, a happy expression appeared on his face, but in front of him, Zhu Ronger's expression had changed from gloomy to shocked. It never occurred to him that this guy looked so stupid, but his body was so powerful, and he even held her 3 killer moves. Okay. The 3 moves are over now, lil girl. I advise you to admit defeat as soon as possible. You can't beat me. If I really fight, then you will only be seriously injured by then. Li Shuwen said. Now his face has returned to the previous simple look, and no one can connect this stupid face with the wild beast-like guy before. Did this guy change just now? This silly face is really this guy. There was a monk below, who reacted from the shock at this time, and said. I don't know, such a monster actually appeared in a place like ours. Thanks to the stupidity of this guy before, I didn't have the idea of bullying him. If I really do it, I'm afraid I'll be maimed by him. A person next to him suddenly swallowed and said. What? You guys have seen him before, and even wanted to bully him. What? You guys didn't talk big, but it's a good thing you didn't do anything at that time. If you did, I'm afraid you will be torn alive by him again. After hearing these words, the monks next to him were all extremely shocked. But what they said was right. If you really couldn't help but look at him stupidly and go up to bully him, you'd probably be torn to pieces by this guy. As far as his terrifying physical strength is concerned, who is sure that he can hurt him? If he really gets angry, I am afraid that even if they have 10 lives, they will not be enough to kill each other. The monk swallowed after hearing this. He was sweating profusely at this moment, and felt extremely lucky. If he had really deceived the silly-looking Li Shuwen in front of him because of a trace of evil thoughts, then he might not be in this world anymore. After all, although such a terrifying guy has a pure mind, if he meets him, he will suffer the most terrifying attack from him. You guy, you are really outrageous. How did you develop this terrifying physical strength? I have practiced Taoism for so many years, and this is the first time I have seen such a guy who can train his warm-up strength to the extreme. The last time I heard about it was the old man in Vientiane. I heard that you were his disciple. I'm afraid you also learned your strength from him. Zhu Ronger put away the contemptuous look on her face, and even put away the gloomy look on her own face. She knew now that if she was tough with him, she might not be an opponent at all, just like a stone hitting an egg. The opponent is a stone, and I am an egg, so I will definitely be smashed into pieces after such a collision. Yo, I didn't expect you to know that old man. It seems that the old man didn't lie to me. He is really famous all over the world, but what you said is a little different. This old man is so ruthless. Every time he hits me, he beats me to death, but this old man sometimes loves me. Li Shuwen suddenly thought about it. His expression was extremely serious. Seeing his frightened yet suddenly serious look, the corners of Zhu Ronger's mouth twitched in front of him. This is the first time he has seen such a guy. This guy really seems to be too simple-minded. Fortunately, the old man who had the Wanxiang sect protected him, otherwise he would go out like this, and I'm afraid he would be manipulated by those conspirators. Then why did you run out this time? Zhu Ronger asked. Why are you so stupid, little girl? Didn't I say it before? This old guy gave me a death order. If I can't take this seat today, I'm afraid I will be beaten severely. It hurts to be beaten by this old guy. I don't want to be beaten by him, so you should obediently go down and give me this seat. If not, I will do it myself. Then you do it. I want to see what strength you have. I was the one who attacked you before. Now I want to see if you can do it. It surprised me. Zhu Ronger also lost interest at this moment. She knew that she was no match for Li Shuwen in front of her. This guy Li Shuwen is too strong. If he wants to force him, he will only suffer. Instead of doing this, it's better to try it out. Anyway, there is still 1 seat left, and she can go over and fight for it. You little girl really don't know what to do. No matter how much I try to persuade you, I can't persuade you. Since you have said so, I will satisfy your request. I have to show you my real strength. Li Shuwen shook his head helplessly at this moment. His eyes looked at Zhu Ronger in front of him, as if looking at a fool. That means that I have already given you a chance. You don't want it. You choose to provoke me. Then I have to make you look good. As he spoke, he saw him pick up the big knife on his shoulder, and the silly look in his eyes had completely disappeared at this moment. Now he seems to have changed into another appearance. His eyes are extremely violent, and his aura is like a beast just out of the cage. And looking at this, it seems that he hasn't eaten for a long time. He is already hungry, and his eyes are full of killing intent. Now that he just came out of the cage, he saw Zhu Ronger in front of him and seemed to see an extremely delicious prey. At this moment, The beast's eyes showed a ferocious murderous look, and he clenched the big knife in his hand. A terrifying and domineering aura directly shook the arena. The group of people below also felt that domineering aura, which seemed to make their legs tremble a little. What's going on here? What happened to this? I don't know. What's going on? What method did this guy use just now? Why do I feel a little uncomfortable now? When the monk felt his legs go limp, he knelt directly on the ground. The disciple next to him who was listening to him also twitched his mouth at this time. Brother, can we tell the truth? You knelt on the ground in fright and just said it. There is no need to be so literary. Although I am also afraid, you are too weak, your legs are weak from fright, I was so scared. The monk next to him said helplessly. Hey, buddy, pull me quickly, my legs feel numb now, I can't move now, if you don't pull me, then I can only kneel here. I really can't do anything about you, that bank of Zo. Plop. Zhu Ronger in front of him felt an extremely powerful saber energy at this time, as if it was about to tear the whole world apart. At this time, the clouds in the sky seemed to feel the power of that saber energy, and began to flow rapidly stand up. Seeing the scene of drastic changes at this moment, Zhu Ronger finally had a dignified look on her face, and the terrifying power in her body also burst out immediately. A pair of red wings suddenly appeared behind him, and there was even a trace of extremely hot flame attached to the pair of red wings. Li Shuwen in front of him stepped out with his right foot and slowly fell backwards, appearing in front of everyone with an extremely strange posture. Now his body is about to touch half of the ground. At this time, his eyes suddenly narrowed, the muscles in his hands tightened suddenly, and the veins on his arms burst out. The strength went back towards Zhu Ronger in front of him. Feeling the powerful saber energy in front of him, Zhu Ronger's face froze at this moment, his pupils shrank slightly. He felt the knife that could tear the world apart, and his body was a little stiff at this moment. She reacted immediately, and hurriedly looked for a corresponding opportunity at this time. At this time, she punched directly on the ground, and 10 pillars of flame suddenly appeared on the ground. The 10 pillars of flame were directly shattered by this terrifying knife energy at this moment, and this terrifying knife even sliced apart the clouds in the entire sky. The 10 flaming pillars in front of them are like building ants at this moment, unable to stop the power of the giant elephant at all. Seeing that the defenses she had made were being repelled layer by layer, Zhu Ronger at this moment finally realized the seriousness of the matter, and she immediately roared angrily. With all his strength, an extremely terrifying red vortex suddenly appeared in front of him. Endless sea of flames. Following his and her roar, the endless sea of flames and the terrifying knife in front of them began to collide with each other. This endless sea of flames finally resisted the extremely terrifying knife in front of him, and finally successfully stopped his advancing speed. However, the terrifying power generated by the collision of the two shocked all the monks around them back thousands of steps. The two were wrestling with each other, and Zhu Ronger in front of him obviously felt the pressure on his body at this time, and the look on his face was getting more and more difficult. Damn it. Why is it so scary? No, you must block it. If you don't block it, you will lose face to the sect. As she said that, Zhu Ronger's face became more determined at this time, and the 5 flames on her body became more and more turbulent. Li Shuwen in front of him is like a wild beast at this time, and he has completely lost the appearance he had at the beginning. Seeing that the sea of flames in front of him blocked his footsteps, he let out an even more furious roar, and then the incomparably terrifying saber energy directly split the sea of flames in front of him into 2. This knife was about to hit Zhu Ronger's body in front of him. At this moment, Zhu Ronger had exhausted all means, and it was impossible to block this move, and coupled with his current weak state, how could it be possible to stop this attack? Not good, it's dangerous, go back quickly. The disciples below came to their senses and hurriedly called Zhu Ronger in front of them. But it was too late, this knife went straight to the door with an unrivaled momentum. Zhu Ronger's pupils shrank slightly at this time, and when he saw the knife coming towards him, he instantly realized that he seemed to be about to die. Died in this place, died under such a knife, this is just a knife made by others. Just this knife is enough to kill her, how terrifying this guy is. As he spoke, a miserable smile appeared on his face, and he looked back on his life in a flash. Am I going to die? I can't dodge this knife. I just found a way to break through the limit of my cultivation, am I going to die here? Hua Ronger said miserably. This is the end. The elders above saw this situation at this time, and they didn't react a little bit. He knew that Li Shuwen was a good guy, but he didn't expect that Li Shuwen could use even more power in that situation. Let them have no idea. At this moment, Lin Yan's face changed drastically, and he wanted to rush over immediately. In that instant, his figure appeared on the top of the ring, facing this knife, he was absolutely capable of striking it down. However, at this time a figure appeared in front of him, and this shocking knife was blocked by the figure in front of him raising his hand. Lin Yan, who had just arrived on the ring, was a little dazed at this moment. How could anyone be faster than him? But he took a look at the deposit and found that Su Han had already appeared on the ring at this time. Su Han looked at the gentle expressions on the faces of the two people who were fighting in front of him, and he knew that Zhu Ronger had no chance of winning this battle if he faced such a monster. Because although Zhu Ronger's control over power is stronger than that guy Li Shuwen, he may even have a higher level of cultivation. However, Li Shuwen is too perverted. His terrifying body alone is enough to crush all monks, not to mention he has a good sword technique. He has just noticed that Li Shuwen seems to have fully understood it, and he has even been able to master the saber technique taught to him by the ancestor of the Wanxiang sect. However, this guy has an obvious shortcoming in fighting, that is, as soon as he starts fighting, he will fall into a berserk state, as if he becomes not like himself, more like a ferocious beast that broke free from a cage. Such a terrifying gesture gave his opponents a headache. No one had heard of his name before, and he was afraid that anyone who provoked him would have been torn to pieces by him. So don't look at how innocent he is when he is not fighting. If he is really allowed to fight, I'm afraid his courage is enough to tear the whole world apart. It will make his opponent completely collapse, because once such a guy fights, he will be irrational and have nothing to stop. After Su Han blocked this move, Li Shuwen in front of him raised his red eyes. There seemed to be some look of surprise on his face. At this moment he hadn't broken free from that beast-like state. Okay, that's the end of it. She lost this round. It was just a test. There's no need to kill people, Su Han said slowly. Phew, have you stopped it? It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's stopped. If it's not stopped, it will be miserable. If it's not stopped, then senior sister Ronger will be completely destroyed. Speaking of which, this guy is really powerful, but what's wrong with this guy? This is just a competition, there is no need to kill him. That's right, it's just a competition for a place. This guy is really ruthless to make such a deadly move. However, fortunately, this elder appeared in time. If there is no such elder, there will probably be a big mess. Forever. The disciples below all breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Li Shuwen in front of him also seemed to have broken free from the beast state. Looking at the scene in front of him, he thought that he might have caused trouble, and a guilty look immediately appeared on his face. What's going on here? Why do so many people appear on this all of a sudden, and why are you all looking at me? Li Shuwen scratched his head at this time, a little flustered, and said, You bastard, you are really ruthless and ruthless. It's too cruel for you to be able to deal with such a ruthless woman in front of you. That's right, you don't know how scary you are just now. This is just a small contest, and you don't need to take other people's lives for this. In an instant, there was a crusade against Li Shuwen in front of him, which also made Li Shuwen a little at a loss. He stood on the ring, watching the people below who were constantly abusing him. At this moment he seemed like a child who had done something wrong. I don't know what happened. I didn't suppress myself just now. What did I do just now? I forgot all the things after I started fighting, Li Shuwen said. Okay, everyone shut up. You have to forgive others and forgive others. There is no problem now, but you have to be more careful next time you call. After all, you can't hold back. If something like this happens again, if we elders are not around, I am afraid that many innocent people will die tragically at your hands. Su Han looked at the disciples below and waved his hand to stop their speech. Looking at Li Shuwen in front of him, his words were full of teachings. Li Shuwen was also very guilty at this time, nodded, with a look of regret on his face. Then he spoke to Zhu Ronger in front of him. I'm sorry, little girl, I did something wrong this time. In order to make up for you, then this champion will belong to you. I won't fight with you again. I did something wrong, so I must pay a price, so I lost this duel. Li Shuwen showed a firm look on his face at this time, as if he wanted to make up for Zhu Ronger in front of him. No, what I said is what I said, and if this kind of quota is obtained by such means, it will only make me feel that I am hypocritical. It is true that you have won, but you can get it next time. Control your reason well. Zhu Ronger regained his composure. Although she did not agree to the other party's request, because such behavior was simply an insult to him. If you lose, you lose. If you are inferior to others, you are inferior to others. Using the other party's guilt to gain a place, how could this be her style? However, it's a pity. I don't know if I can go there. There was a little regret on Zhu Ronger's face. As he said that, he walked slowly, and Su Han naturally also walked down, because now the matter has been resolved, so there is no need for him to stay here. Okay, if you lose, you lose. There's nothing wrong with losing. At least it will give you some motivation to move forward. But don't worry, I will go inside and find the spiritual fire you need. Su Han spoke while walking. The two left the ring on their own, leaving only Li Shuwen in front of him with a bewildered look on his face. What's the matter? Don't you even want to give it to you? Then what should I do? How can I compensate him for what I did wrong? Li Shuwen said. He scratched his head, as if racking his brains to think of any way to compensate the other party. But after thinking for a long time, he didn't come up with a reason. His wisdom seemed to be insufficient at this moment, and the disciples below were also standing in place at this time. As for why he didn't dare to go up to make a joke, who would dare to go up? This guy is an out-and-out lunatic. When he lost his mind, he punched, but enough to kill a person. If there weren't some elders in place, no one would be able to stop the oppressive feeling caused by his knife just now, and they didn't want to feel it at close range. Just by standing below, one could feel the domineering force that split their bodies into two. If they stood opposite him and felt the knife slashing on their bodies at close range, then they would definitely fall on the spot. So those people below stood still and did not dare to move, and the time of a stick of incense passed. Still no one dared to go up to the stage to challenge Li Shuwen in front of him. Li Shuwen also stood in place smoothly. He looked at the people below with a very stupid expression on his face. He was also very curious at this time, why no one came up to challenge him, which made his life so boring. After all, he only made one move from head to toe. This kid is really amazing, he has already calmed down the audience with just one move, Lin Yan said. He was a little envious at this time, but when he thought about it, his disciples were no worse than him. Among the disciples in his sect, there were a lot of talented and powerful disciples. And among these 10 seats, 3 or 4 are disciples of his sect, so he is in a better mood now. That's right, this guy has completely inherited the mantle of that old guy, but this stupid character may have a huge influence on him in the future, said the ancestor of the Yujiazong. There is no way. After all, God has given him such a powerful talent and physique. It is impossible to give him wisdom beyond ordinary people. If you give him wisdom, I am afraid that some people will not be able to stand up. The patriarch of Da Luo Jianzong shook his head at this moment and said. Okay, this time the drill is over, these 10 people have already come out. Let's see when we arrange for them to enter inside to find opportunities, and see how far those boys can go. Not to mention there are other domains you are a genius, go inside and compete with us, so you must be more careful this time. Fang Hengsen said. That's natural, but I'm more curious if other domains can send some talented people this time? Otherwise we will feel very boring. After all, this time we can say that 100 flowers are blooming here, and there are so many talented people. Lin Yan spoke with excitement and said with a smile. Looking at it like this, those who didn't know thought that he was about to enter it to find opportunities. It's hard to say, maybe this time, people from other places will be difficult to deal with. Okay, let's end the meeting now. This time the Zongmen Grand Competition is over. If you want to say that you have gained the most, you have to be the guy. Lin Yan, you guy is really lucky to receive it. So much talent. And I also got Su Xiaoyu, a person with such great strength and talent. He can even be said to be the only person in the entire Tianquan domain who can refine the 9th grade elixir. Fang Hengsen was also envious at this time and was about to bite his teeth. How could such a guy get such a good talent, and even so many blessings befall him? On the contrary, the geniuses on their side have big problems one by one. Let's take Li Wuxiang as an example. This guy could have become a genius child of the younger generation, but that incident can be said to have completely wiped him out. His vigor has worn away the pursuit of Taoism in his heart. At the beginning, in order to revive his fighting spirit, Fang Han spent a lot of effort and even recruited many people, but he never mentioned any effect, and could only watch Li Wuxiang gradually degenerate seriously. It can't be helped. After all, the old man can't do anything else. He only knows how to fight. If anyone dares to stand in front of me, I will beat him up with my fists. I don't want to do more things like brainstorming. Perhaps the heavens saw my embarrassment, so they sent Elder Su to my sect to block the ministers. Lin Yan's face was very arrogant. At this moment, he seemed to have reached the peak, and he was blowing hype over the disciples of his sect in Su Han. This action attracted the hatred of the elders of other sects, and the ancestor of the Liuli sect also sighed at this moment. If you want to say it like this, then only my glazed tile sect is the worst this year, and only 10 disciples have been shortlisted. The old woman of the glazed tile sect showed a downcast look on her face. Don't worry, we won't forget you, but how long will it be until your earthly supreme catastrophe arrives? We will work together to help you survive this catastrophe safely. Lin Yan said. He is not a perfidy person. It can be said that he pays great attention to promises, and the kindness of a drop of water should be repaid by a spring. There is cause and effect in this world. They have become other people's love, they must pay it back. If they don't pay it back, then I'm afraid they will fall into the demons in this life because of it, so this time the supreme tribulation, they must have the glazed sect the old woman spent. Yes. When will you be ready? Then contact us, we will definitely come over in person, protect you, and try our best to help you survive this disaster. Fang Hangsen said very solemnly at this time. He didn't forget his promise after that catastrophe, after all, it was what he personally promised to the other party. Let's go. After 10 days, come to my Yao Yanzong round, then go to the entrance of the ancient god realm, and send these little guys in properly. Lin Yan said. This grand ceremony has also been held for a long time, and now those seats have been released, and the disciples who will enter it have also been confirmed, so it is useless to come back here again. And those disciples who didn't get the places, and didn't even go up to fight hard, showed regretful expressions on their faces. After all, this is an opportunity for them to soar into the sky, and there are many benefits in the burial ancient god realm. This may be their chance to soar into the sky in this life, but all the monsters stand in front of them, and it will definitely not be easy for them to defeat the 10 monsters standing on the ring. What's more, even if you defeat them, you still have to face the counterattack of so many monks below. Therefore, it may be a better way to give up according to their strength. But even if you give up, you will still feel very regretful. After all, such an opportunity is rare. At this time, Su Han and Zhu Ronger walked together, and Zhu Ronger showed a grateful expression, because Sophie was willing to help him find the spiritual fire from the ancient burial domain. Elder Su, I can't repay you. If Elder Su has any errands in the future, I will definitely not blink an eye when I go up the mountain of knives and down the pan of oil. The look on Zhu Ronger's face was very excited. If Su Han can really do it, then his strength will be greatly improved, and the shackles that have been restricting her strength will be broken. Okay, there's no need to do this, after all, you are also a disciple of Yaoyan sect, and I am also a member of Yaoyan sect, so it is naturally obligatory for the elder to find something from it and help you break through. Su Han spoke uprightly. After hearing this sentence, Zhu Ronger in front of him was even more moved at the moment. It was the first time he saw such a person, and such a person became the elder of their sect, which made him feel extremely warm. At this moment, a person suddenly appeared in front of them. They looked up and found that it was Li Wuxiang. Li Wuxiang stood in front of Su Han with a cold face. There seemed to be some brilliance restored in the dull eyes, he said. Remember your promise. I will come in person in 3 days. If you can't bring me the elixir, then I will do my best to make you pay some price. Look at what you said. Are you afraid that I won't keep my promise? Is this the kind of person I am in your eyes? You really look down on me, but you are right, after 3 days you will have to be on time come, Su Han said. He doesn't worry about this, after all, it's all part of his plan. And is what you said true? You can avenge me, is this true or not? When Li Wuxiang said this, a huge murderous intent flashed in his eyes. At this moment, his eye sockets had become red, and his eyes were bloodshot. It was like a wild beast that was about to go mad. At this moment, a wide palm suddenly appeared on his shoulder, and that wide palm firmly suppressed him. Brother, what are you trying to do? You can't touch the little girl in front of you, and you can't touch the person next to him. If you dare to touch him, then I will be rude to you. The rough and wild voice suddenly broke the silence of the 3 people. The 3 people looked up at the same time and found that it was Li Shuwen from before. Li Shuwen was serious at this moment, and his face was very unkind. It seemed that if Li Wuxiang in front of him made another move, he would do it directly. Let go. Li Wuxiang said with a displeased face. You have to promise me that you won't do anything to them, then I'll let you go. I don't want to say it a second time, let me go. Li Wuxiang's eyes were full of murderous intent at this time. He hated others to interrupt him suddenly, and the strength of the guy in front of him was getting stronger and stronger, as if he was smashing him to the end. Brother, you are not going to give me this face, then we have to have a good discussion. I told you that I will protect this little girl. What happened to your eyes just now? You want to treat him, do it, huh? Li Shuwen is naturally not a shy master, there is a touch of coldness on his face. Although he doesn't seem to have a bright head, he can still perceive the killing intent clearly. He just saw Su Han and Zhu Ronger walking together in that position were suddenly stopped by Li Wuxiang, and the terrifying murderous intent revealed on Li Wuxiang's body. His was very keen, he felt it, and he instantly understood that this guy seemed to be coming in a bad way, and he seemed to want to do something to Zhu Ronger. And if he makes a move now, he will naturally be able to make up for Zhu Ronger, and make up for the harm he caused to her just because he lost his mind. Thinking of this, he walked over without any hesitation, and directly pinched Li Wuxiang's shoulder with his wide palm. Who knows that Li Wuxiang is also a master who is not easy to mess with. The cold killing intent exuding from his body also makes him alert. Okay. Stop, you two. You two are my own people. This guy was just talking to me about something, just talking about his sad things. Su Han looked at the two of them facing each other with a helpless look on his face. These two guys have a personality as cold as ice. Although they have been decadent for many years, the arrogance in their eyes still exists. And the other one is physically invincible and has great swordsmanship, but his brain is not very good. This requires two people to collide, and that may not necessarily create a huge spark. It is indeed a pity that we cannot see the duel between the two of them. But now is not the time to start a fight. Now they have more important tasks to do, and the meeting has already adjourned, and they are still arguing here. Once a fight breaks out and hurts some pedestrians around in the sect's finances, it will be bad up. Oh, so that's the case. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. This brother is really sorry. I saw your murderous look on your face, and thought you were going to do something to them. Li Shuwen also reacted at this time, scratching his head, with an embarrassed smile on his face. Then he put his arm on Li Wuxiang's shoulder. Li Wuxiang felt the thick arm, and at this moment there was a look of disgust on his face. He even felt a huge pressure coming from his body, as if a boulder was pressing on his body. He raised his head and looked at the tall guy in front of him very curiously. This guy is so familiar, and I don't seem to know him very well. With his appearance, those who don't know think that the two of them are good brothers. Do you really have a way to help me get revenge? Li Wuxiang took a deep breath and said. This is what he is most concerned about. Once the seeds of revenge are planted in his heart, they will surely germinate crazily. Because he wanted to take revenge before, but the powerful strength of that big monster had already wiped out all his hopes. But at this moment, a person appeared, and that person told him that he could help him completely heal his companion, and he could give him the power of revenge. In this way, the flame of revenge in his heart was completely aroused, so at this moment, he really wanted to know the answer from Su Han. I really want to know if what he said is true, if I can really take revenge like that big monster. Of course, it's up to you to believe it or not. I will only say my answer. My answer is always yes. There is nothing I can't do here. Whether you can do it or not depends on your firm belief. Su Han said. Okay. Then this time I will go with you to the ancient burial god realm. If you can't do it, then I won't forgive you. Li Wuxiang snorted coldly. As he said that, he turned and left, leaving behind a cold back. At this time, Li Shuwen, who was next to him, stepped up, with a puzzled look on his face, looked at Su Han and said. Who the hell is this guy? He's so aggressive. Besides, he looks pretty good. I was a little flustered just now. You guys really don't have a little bit of defense, but you have a sense of crisis. That's really good. This guy is also very strong. Su Han looked at the familiar Li Shuwen and said helplessly. Really? Then we have to have a good fight with him another day, to see if that guy is really strong, and to see if he can hurt me. If he can hurt me, that would be the best. Li Shuwen said excitedly. Okay, you can go and prepare later. Tell your master well. Let him give you a few more life-saving magic weapons, and it is best to protect your soul. Su Han said. Looking at Li Shuwen in front of him, he felt very helpless. Why did you ask my master to protect the magic weapon of the soul? Li Shuwen had a very puzzled look on his face. This guy is not smart at first glance, and his soul doesn't look very strong. Although his body is strong, his soul has always been your defect. When you enter there, you will meet many powerful people. Maybe some people will be abnormal. Powerful. There is also a very strong attainment in dealing with the soul, so, you may ask your master for some magic weapons that can protect the soul. In this case, even if your soul is weak, you can still have it in the burial god realm. The ability to save lives. Su Han continued. Of course he has already thought of an excuse. If he didn't think about it, could he tell him that I have a system and I already know that you will be taken away by the true king of reincarnation in the future? That was naturally impossible, so he could only use this excuse to tell Li Shuwen in front of him to make preparations in advance. Oh, what you said is indeed reasonable. You are so smart. Why didn't I think of it? I'll go back and find the old man for some magic weapons that can protect the spirit. Take as much as you have. Anyway, the old man has a lot of treasures. After all, I am his only disciple. If there are a few more, he won't say anything. Li Shuwen slapped his palm, and suddenly realized at this moment, the expression on his face was very excited. He looked like a child who found a toy. You guys are really. Seeing his wise appearance, Su Han showed helplessness on his face, but there was nothing he could do. Who told him that this guy was physically strong, and his investment value was also very high. The trace of Kui Niu blood in his body gave his body endless vitality. Coupled with his excellent attainments in saber techniques, Zai Qingqing can have such a powerful destructive power. Of course, his spirit has always been his weakness, which makes his IQ not look very high now. As long as he enters the fighting state, he will completely lose his mind. Until all the enemies in front of him are torn apart, I am afraid that the reason why he is not well known should be that all the people who have seen him attack have died. Okay. I have to thank you just now. If you hadn't acted in time, I'm afraid I would have made a big mistake. If I accidentally hurt the little girl, I'm afraid I'll be guilty for 10 generations. At this time, Li Shuwen seemed like a child who did something wrong, usually standing beside him very well behaved. At this time, the strong man with more than 2 meters showed a childlike expression of admitting his mistake, which made Su Han in front of him look very awkward. He waved his hand and said, "It's fine, it's not that important, as long as it's okay, but you guys have to pay attention next time. If something like this happens again, it will be troublesome," Su Han said. "I can't do anything about it. After all, when I start fighting, I seem to be excited. These people in front of me seem to be my prey. Normally, I want to tear them all to pieces." Thinking of the previous feelings, Li Shuwen also felt very embarrassed at this time. This feeling of losing his mind and being dominated by the wildness in his body is very sad. He tried to get rid of this feeling several times but couldn't do it. Because of his spiritual flaws, he simply doesn't have the ability to calmly control his own strength in battle. Okay. Go find your master more often, and get the magic weapon in advance. After all, your master has lived for so long, and there must be a lot of magic weapons related to the soul. Remember to come here on time after 5 days. You went to the entrance of the ancient burial god realm, Su Han said. Senior, I would like to ask, what exactly is in the ancient burial god realm? Why did you choose 10 disciples from among so many disciples? Li Shuwen rubbed his palms at this time, with an extremely excited expression on his face. I don't know about this. You have to go back and ask your master. Maybe your master will come here when he knows it. I should go back. After all, I still have things to do. You have to go to refine it quickly, Su Han said. He didn't want to say a few more words to Li Shuwen in front of him. He felt that if he continued, he would be assimilated by him, and his IQ would drop sharply. Really? Then I really should go back, but where did I just come from? At this moment, Li Shuwen raised his head and fell into deep thought. He was trying to recall the path he had traveled. Originally, Zheng Zheng had already left Su Han, but after hearing this sentence, he almost stumbled, the corner of his mouth twitched, and the expression on his face was very helpless. You guy, it's really worrying, you can even forget the way back, so how did you come here? Su Han asked. But it was the first time that he felt very helpless to the person in front of him. After thinking for a long time, Li Shuwen spoke very seriously. I just keep going, the old man told me, just keep going south. I walked for 3 days and 3 nights, and it seems that I met a kind-hearted person in the back, followed him, and I found this place. After hearing this sentence, the corner of Su Han's mouth twitched, and he held his forehead helplessly and said, Wait a minute, I'll go find the disciples in my sect. Hey, by the way, Wronger, do you know where the Wanxiang sect is? If you know, then send this guy home. I'm afraid that this guy won't be able to find where his home is at that time, so he will leave abruptly. For a few days and nights, I lost the person later. Seeing Zhu Wronger next to him, Su Han already had some thoughts in his mind. I know, you are a real guy, it's the first time I've seen a guy who doesn't even know the road when I grow up. Zhu Wronger also felt helpless at this time, he lost to such a guy. He felt very ashamed, but he had to say that if this guy really went crazy, there were not many who could stop him. In the same realm, he can be said to be a king and hegemony, but this guy's brain is not enough. If he tries to trick him, I'm afraid he won't have any strength to fight back. Hey, okay, girl, you are such a good person. I didn't expect that I almost hurt you before, and you are still willing to take me back. When I go back to Vientiane, I will definitely let the old man lock you up. A few magic weapons for self-defense. Li Shuwen said happily. It seems that in this way, he can repay the other party's kindness, and even make up for the harm he caused to Zhu Wronger before. Okay, come with me, Elder Su, you should go back first, and practice the elixir well. If you make that guy wait in a hurry, I'm really afraid that he will come to our sect and start a killing spree. Zhu Wronger also knew that Su Han was very busy, so naturally did not worry Su Han. Don't worry, if this guy really dares to do this, then you call me over when the time comes, and I will definitely restrain him to death. This guy has thin arms and legs, and he doesn't have much strength at first glance. It's this guy it's cold around here. When I got close to him, my body was shivering from the cold, but it's not a problem. If this guy really dares to make a move on you, then I will piss on his ass. Li Shuwen clenched his fists and showed an extremely serious identity on his face. Seeing Li Shuwen's appearance, Zhu Wronger couldn't help laughing at this time. He felt that Li Shuwen in front of him didn't seem to have any shortcomings except that he was not very smart, and he looked quite pleasing to the eye. After seeing the two people slowly leaving the sect in harmony, Su Han also let out a long sigh at this time. Hey, why do these genius disciples have such a big problem these days? In fact, it's okay to have a problem. I can still prescribe the right medicine, but why do these guys even have psychological problems? Su Han just felt more and more that it was becoming more and more difficult to invest in them to achieve results. Okay, let's quickly refine the elixir, or that guy Wuxiang will go crazy. During these 3 days, Su Han was naturally not idle. After all, he promised Li Wuxiang to refine this elixir. Fortunately, many medicinal materials were found in the Pill Emperor Pagoda. Coupled with his alchemy skills, it is not difficult to refine this Tinlian good fortune pill. Su Han, who was in the cave at this time, accurately controlled the flames under the alchemy furnace. Looking at the elixir slowly taking shape under his refinement, a happy look appeared on his face. In the sky at this moment, a muffled thunder suddenly occurred to him, and immediately after that, the sky over Yao Yanzong was covered with dark clouds. What's going on here? The weather was so clear just now. Why is it suddenly thundering now? I'm not sure. It was a sunny day just now, and the sun is hanging in the sky. Why are there suddenly dark clouds? Before the disciples below had finished discussing, the thunder pierced the sky and directly struck towards the cave where Yao Yanzong came out. I'm going. What's the situation? He Fang Daofa made another move. Isn't Elder Sus cave in that direction? What's going on here? Why did the lightning hit his residence? No way? You won't do anything, right? Hurry over and have a look. Lin Yan, who was resting his eyes with his eyes closed, also sensed something was wrong at this moment. He immediately regained his composure, and went to observe Su Han. He just felt a very powerful thunder force. At the moment when the masculine and vigorous thunder force struck down, his consciousness also shook tremendously. This breath. Why is this powerful thunder force so powerful? What is Su Xiaofa doing? This situation is not good. I better go and have a look. If something happens to him, it will be bad. Lin Yan said in his heart. He doesn't want anything to happen to Su Han in his mansion. After all, Su Han is his lucky star and has brought him so many benefits, so he must take good care of this lucky baby. Lin Yan came to the outside of Su Han's cave at a fast speed, but found that the outside of Su Han's cave was already full of people, so he rushed to get up there. Su Han had already reached the most important point at this time. Even the creation pill was only one step away from being formed that day, and there was only the last thunder tribulation left in the sky. At this moment, the last thunderbolt suddenly fell from the sky, and it directly hit Su Han's cave, which scared the disciples beside him quite a bit. Lin Yan also had a serious expression at this moment. What's going on here? What's going on here? Where is Elder Su? Lin Yan said. Sovereign, we don't know. I don't know why the sky is suddenly covered with dark clouds. Moreover, Elder Su's cave has already been struck by lightning. I don't know how many times he has been struck by lightning. The disciple next to him also said very anxiously at this time. Sect Master, you should quickly think of a way. Elder Su can't do anything wrong. Elder Su is kind to me. That's right, suzerain, you can't give up on Elder Su. Elder Su has been so kind to me and helped me so much, I can't just watch him have an accident. All of a sudden, all the disciples were begging Lin Yan to take action. Lin Yan was also very pleased to see the scene below. It seemed that Su Han had really done something that many elders did not do during this period of time, that is, help those civilian children to tide over the difficulties. Even for some ordinary disciples, Su Han will give a helping hand to help them overcome the difficulties they face, so Su Han has an extremely high reputation in the sect. Just after the last thunderbolt fell, a golden light suddenly emerged from Su Han's cave. Immediately afterwards, a scent of elixir began to permeate the air. Everyone felt refreshed physically and mentally after smelling this elixir, and it seemed that their injuries were gradually getting better. What's this smell? How can it make people smell so comfortable? A disciple next to him said happily. At this moment, a smile appeared on Su Han's face. He looked at the 2 Tinlian creation pills in his hand, and Tian Fen walked out of the cave in satisfaction. Outside the cave, he saw that the disciples were already surrounded, and even Lin Yan was stunned. He couldn't figure it out for a while, and said. Here, is this what you want me to do? Elder Su, what earth-shattering thing are you doing? Why did you even attract heavenly tribulation, and your cave has been hacked so many times? I was afraid that you would provoke something unclean, so I came here on purpose. Take a look. Lin Yan said. At this time, Lin Yan also saw clearly what Su Han was doing. This guy was making alchemy. It's nothing, it's just refining 2 9th-grade pills. That's why you have provoked so many thunder calamities, and the suzerain has troubled you. Su Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this moment. He never thought that his alchemy would cause such a big commotion and attract so many disciples. But there is no problem if you think about it. After all, the alchemy here attracted such a huge thunder. That day the thunder had already covered the entire Yaoyan sect, and it was possible to attract all the disciples here. No wonder. Moreover, the vision of heaven and earth produced by the 9th grade elixir is extremely shocking, even comparable to the scene of breaking through the supreme realm. I'm afraid they are starting to misunderstand a little bit, which is why so many people have gathered. Okay, I won't tell you anymore, someone will come over later, I have to get this thing and go see him, Su Han said. Who? Lin Yan said. At this moment, outside the sect, a person suddenly walked in. Elder Su, I don't know if you have taken the elixir, I'm here to get my things as promised. A cold voice came, and all the disciples below felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. After they saw the person coming, they immediately relaxed their minds. That guy was Li Wuxiang from Glacier Valley. Come on, you came here so fast, it's only the 3rd day, Su Han said. I just want to know if you've done what you said. If you haven't, then even if you turn into a ghost in this life, I won't let you go. Li Wuxiang raised his head at this time, a formidable look flashed in his eyes, staring at Su Han in front of him. After hearing this sentence, Liang Yeshui, Chu Tianrui, Chu Yuhua and the others looked unkind, and a powerful aura erupted from them instantly. This powerful aura directly locked onto Li Wuxiang in front of him. Su Han saw their confrontation. With a helpless look on his face, he said yes. Okay, don't be so nervous, what do you want? Just say no, and I promise you, I will definitely do it. And I promised you, I will definitely do it, there is no need to make such a big commotion. Su Han was actually a little dumbfounded, this guy seemed really anxious, no wonder he ran over so early in the morning. HMPH, you bastard, show me some respect. Although I don't know what Elder Su promised you, is this your attitude when asking for help? Zhu Ronger also had a bad expression at this time. The other party is really too aggressive, although she has a certain understanding and some inside information. Li Wuxiang in front of him seemed to have promised Su Han something, and Su Han also promised to heal his 2 close friends. But in the final analysis, it was because of Su Han's kindness to help him. This guy was so domineering, which made Rong in front of him very upset. That's right, Elder Su has been kind and charitable all his life, and he has done his best for me. You guy, although you don't know the answer to what happened with Elder Su, it seems that you are asking him for something. Your attitude is really amazing. People are very upset. Chu Tianrui snorted coldly. Okay, there's no need to worry about it so much. Since I promised you, then I will naturally do it, so keep going, Su Han said. His mobile phone directly threw 2 pills at Li Wuxiang in front of him, and at this moment, a gleam of light suddenly appeared in Ji Wuxiang's eyes. Li Wuxiang held the elixir in his hand, and after repeated confirmations, he confirmed that it was a 9th grade elixir, and just smelling the scent of this elixir had already caused some injuries on his body. Quick recovery. It seems that this should be the heavenly lotus creation pill that Su Han mentioned. With these 2 pills, the injuries of his 2 friends must be easily resolved. Thinking of this, he raised his head, a look of confusion flashed in his eyes. At the moment he got the elixir, he seemed to think a lot, there is no more previous impulse. He didn't know why the guy in front of him would do his best to help him, from his despair and shame at the beginning to his relief after getting this elixir. He doesn't know what value he has, and he can let the other party help him in this way. What good would it do him if he cheered himself up? This made him puzzled, and there was nothing in him that was worthy of his plot. Why do you help me like this? I want to know an answer, Li Wuxiang said. He didn't know that there would really be such kind-hearted people in this world, who would do their best to help a person, and it could be said that he was the only one who benefited from this matter from beginning to end. I regained my strength, and my 2 friends' injuries can also be fully recovered, and from now on I can also embark on the road of cultivation again. He entered the ancient burial god realm by himself, and he promised to help him find opportunities to make himself stronger and take revenge on the big monster in the withered forest. All of this does not seem to be of any benefit to Su Han in front of him, at least in his opinion, all of this makes him a beneficiary. He didn't know what Su Han in front of him was willing to go to such lengths to help him. He thought about it a lot in the past 3 days, but he still couldn't figure it out. Why do you spend so much time talking? Why should I help those friends who are not going to save you? You will know later, so go to the top. I hope that next time I see you, you will already be an indomitable strongman. It's not like I was so depressed and ashamed when I first saw you, and there was no trace of Taoism in my eyes. Su Han was also taken aback by his question, and then said, I just want to know that I am such a person who has no value of use and is so aggressive. What value is there for you to help? Li Wuxiang clenched the 2 pills in his hands at this time, and said. If I have to know one answer, it is that I prefer to help others, and I don't want to see a genius depressed. Tianquan domain still has to have more and more geniuses, so that it will be wonderful. Su Han said with a smile on his face, but that smile made Li Wuxiang in front of him stunned, his eyes were already red. Tears seemed to be pouring out of their eyes immediately. This sudden change made Gun Yeshui and the others, who had a bad face in front of them, a little at a loss at this moment. Hey, what's the matter with this guy? Why is he crying all of a sudden? Chu Tianrui said. I don't know, it looks like this guy must be moved. Thank you. Elder Su, in the future, if you have any orders, then I will definitely arrive at the first time. From now on, you will be my benefactor. Li Wuxiang said. As he said that, he suddenly kowtowed deeply to Su Han in front of him a few times on the ground, and then resolutely left Yao Yanzong. This sudden scene made Su Han in front of him touch his nose in embarrassment. At this time, he also felt quite helpless. Li Wuxiang in front of him had changed from being domineering at the beginning to the current appearance. What's the matter? But this guy finally solved it. I'm really worried that this guy will come up to find trouble. Since this is the case, this matter has been completely resolved, then we will enter the ancient burial god realm after sunrise. Su Han said. Lin Yan came up at this time, looked at Su Han in front of him, with a meaningful expression on his face, and said. Elder Su, it seems that you have done a big thing quietly again. I have heard about this kid, and I know his deeds. Can the elixir you just refined really help him? It can help him. There is no problem with this elixir to recover the injuries of his 2 companions, Su Han said. That's really unbelievable, Elder Su, you are getting more and more difficult for me to see through, but this is also good. After all, that old guy Fang Hangson owes us a big favor now. I will see this in the future. Why is the old guy so arrogant in front of me? A wild smile appeared on Lin Yan's face. At this moment, he was already dreaming of a bandit. He had already imagined how Fang Hangson would behave in front of him in the future. After all, Fang Hanshui owed them a big favor this time. Healing their disciple was equivalent to giving them a new life in Glacier Valley. A powerful boost. Is it so exaggerated? Su Han's face was full of helplessness. As the suzerain, he was good at everything, but sometimes he was not serious and unreliable. That's not it. You don't know what kind of stinky face that old guy has on weekdays, with a cold face every day, as if someone owes him money. Lin Yan said with a look of contempt on his face. It's good this time. I see how you, old boy, pretend to be in front of me. This time, I helped him solve the problem of Li Wuxiang. Lin Yan laughed. But this kid is also a hard-working person. After all, everyone has a time when he is young and frivolous, and what this kid did has made him suffer. When Lin Yan said this, the previous smile was no longer on his face, it was just a deep pity. After all, Fang Hangson knew most of the disciples under his command, and there were only a few of them who were the best, but compared with Li Wu, there was still a huge gap between those few. At that time, Li Wuxiang was able to balance the existence of a group of geniuses. It can be said that his sudden appearance put a heavy pressure on the disciples of Tinlongyu. But after such a disciple experienced such a thing, he was completely destroyed, and his Dao heart was completely destroyed. Even if Fang Han tried his best, it would be irreparable, but now that Su Han rescued his 2 companions, maybe he could get Li Wuxiang on the right track. But it's not necessarily just about saving his 2 companions. This guy will definitely feel guilty. If this happens, it's not a good way. Lin Yan touched his chin and thought about it. A strong desire for knowledge appeared in his eyes. Looking at Su Han in front of him, he seemed to want to know what Su Han did to pull Li Wuxiang back from the edge of the cliff. It's actually quite simple. I just promised him that in the future, he will be able to gain more power, so that he can personally avenge that monster, Su Han said. After hearing this sentence, Lin Yan in front of him was also a little dumb at this time, and he spoke after being shocked for a long time. Is what you said true? You really promised that guy to help him get revenge on that big monster in the future? That's not it. After all, this is what I promised him, and is that big monster difficult to deal with? Su Han said. That's more than difficult to deal with. It's as difficult as heaven. This big monster is the master of the entire withered forest, and the monster race has always had an extremely powerful body. In addition, he is a natural creature. He also has an extremely powerful talent in practice. Since then, it is not an exaggeration to say that Yaozu is the darling of heaven and earth. But my human race is weak in body. If I want to say where I can compare with the monster race, it is a smart brain and incomparable attainments in Taoism. This is also the reason why our human race can gain a foothold in this world, but that big monster is very powerful, and he would not leave the withered forest on weekdays, because he was injured. If it wasn't for that kid, if you take the initiative to provoke him, then none of this will happen, Lin Yan said. He also explained this matter to Su Han, but in the final analysis, Li Wuxiang was young and frivolous, thinking of stepping to the top. There is no way. Right now, hatred is the best catalyst. To deal with such a guy, we must give him a goal. Only in this way can he become stronger and give him the motivation to continue walking. Su Han didn't pay too much attention to these, just said casually. To be honest, I don't have great hopes for this matter. After all, that big monster is too terrifying. That big guy was the murderer tens of thousands of years ago. It can be said that he caused a great murder. His strength is estimated to have reached the peak of the Earth Supreme. Back then, he wanted to further break through to the Heaven Supreme. After passing through this thunder tribulation, he will be the most powerful existence in this sky domain at that time. Unfortunately, this way of heaven will not fulfill him after all, and now he is just dragging his body to survive. But even so, this is not a guy we can deal with. His cultivation has already reached the peak of geological squatting, and he has been settled for many years. I am afraid it will not be so easy for us to deal with him, Lin Yan said. Speaking of the big monster, there was only a strong fear on his face. After all, the impression that the big monster left on him was too deep in people's hearts. He really couldn't figure out what happened to that little guy Li Wuxiang. It's like messing with him. Okay, it's useless to say more. I'll let him do it in the future. After all, this is his only motivation. If you don't give him some motivation, then he will continue to be depressed and continue to commit suicide. If you don't do this, after refining these 2 elixirs, I'm afraid that kid will seek death, Su Han said. It's not that exaggerated. This kid probably won't make such a drastic move, Lin Yan thought at this moment. Based on what I know about this kid, there is a high probability that this will happen. Although I have only known him for a few days, this kid values love and righteousness. Although after going through this incident, his edges and corners have been smoothed, but the arrogance in his bones has not faded away. After healed his 2 companions, he should go to the other 2 dead companions. I apologize, Su Han said. After hearing this sentence, Lin Yan in front of him also fell into silence. I'm afraid that what I said is very reasonable. If the 2 companions are really cured, then I'm afraid Li Wuxiang will seek death immediately. Okay, everyone, let's go. Today's play is over. Let's go back to practice. If you don't practice anymore, you can only be left far behind by others. At this time, Su Han looked at the still surging crowd behind him, with a helpless look on his face. He could only drive them back to practice immediately. After all, they had to step up their practice now. At the same time, he also asked those disciples who were about to go to the ancient burial god realm to prepare well when they went back. After all, this was no child's play. Those disciples naturally felt that there was nothing to see after seeing the end of the matter, and they were all ready to go back. Not long after the disciple left, a huge figure immediately appeared in front of their sect. The man broke in regardless of the so-called obstruction, and he came to Su Han and took a good look. Where's that kid? Where did that kid go? The huge figure in front of him said immediately. After seeing this person in front of him, Su Han only felt very helpless at this moment, he said while covering his forehead. Why did you come back here again? Didn't you go back? Why did you come so soon? The person in front of him was none other than Li Shuwen, and a simple and honest smile appeared on Li Shuwen's face. 3 days have passed, and 3 days is long enough. My master immediately kicked me out when he heard that I came to him for something, Li Shuwen said with a look of embarrassment on his face. Your master kicked you out? Didn't he give you something? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be, Su Han said. That's true. Oh, I remembered, he gave me a jade pendant and tied it around my neck. He told me it's all right, don't take it off. Li Shuwen was about to say yes, but suddenly his mind flashed and he remembered this matter. Seeing the jade pendant on Li Shuwen's neck, Su Han also nodded at this time. It seems that this is the treasure his master gave him. Sure enough, for his only disciple, his master should not be stingy. Then why are you running to the here when you have nothing to do? Logically speaking, you should have a good rest and look for opportunities to prepare for the trip to the ancient god realm in the near future. Su Han said with a puzzled look on his face. I don't have a place to go, and I don't know the way, and I don't have a place to live. After hesitating for a long time, Li Wuxiang said this sentence embarrassingly. After hearing this sentence, Su Han immediately broke his face and said, please speak clearly. My master, he didn't give me any money. He just gave me this jade pendant and drove me down. I don't have any money, I don't have a place to live, and I don't know the way. So just come back here. Li Shuwen rubbed her hands together, trying to ease her embarrassment. You guy. You probably didn't just walk here when you came here for the competition before, and you lived in the open air, Su Han said. Yes, the old man didn't give me anything, just drove me down like this. I can't help it, so I can only go back here at this time, because this is the only place I know, and I only know the way here. Li Shuwen laughed. Lin Yan looked at the big man Li Shuwen in front of him, and after hearing his words, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth and said, "You kid, really, forget it. I'm afraid you won't be happy if I say it, but this is indeed in line with your master's style. Your master is really good. This is also safe to throw you outside. He is not afraid that you will be swallowed alive by others." Swallow it alive? That's not going to happen. When those guys saw me, they were all afraid of him, except for some blind people who came up to me, but they were all smashed into meat by me. After thinking for a long time, Li Shuwen had a flash of inspiration and said. After hearing this sentence, Lin Yan in front of him felt even more helpless. Yu Qi Jing, this old ghost, he is really big enough to let you go like this, but you are also fierce, and your appearance has brought you great benefits, making ordinary people feel uncomfortable. Dare to be close to you, reducing your risk. Lin Yan said with a long sigh. Okay, since you don't have a place to live, let's arrange for him to go to our Yaoyan sect for the time being. Anyway, the ancient burial god realm will be opened soon, so come with us when the time comes, Lin Yan said. He has no choice, after all, he can't just watch Li Shuwen in front of him living on the street. In case this guy can't find his way by then, and if he can't see this guy when Yao Yanzong gathers to go to the ancient god realm, then he should be in a hurry. After all, this guy's brain is really hard to use. If something really happens at that time, I'm afraid his master, Yu Qijing, an old guy, will have to eat him alive. Hey, thank you, it's not easy to have a place to live. After Li Shuwen heard this sentence, he rubbed his hands in satisfaction, and then walked out immediately, as if he had come to his own home. There was no birth at all. Seeing this appearance, Lin Yan and Su Han looked at each other and shook their heads. Go there, you have to be very careful, Lin Yan said calmly. Sovereign, what do you mean by this? Could it be that it's not peaceful here? Su Han asked. Indeed, it's really not peaceful here recently. It's been very restless recently, and it seems that more and more opportunities have appeared, and even some geniuses from the upper world have been attracted, so this time it's very dangerous. If you are a little careless, all the opportunities you get may be used as dowry for others, so you must be extremely careful when you go inside, and you must be extremely careful not to reveal your wealth. If it arouses other people's covetousness, it may cause serious trouble, Lin Dan said. He also let out a long sigh. After all, their Tianquan domain is still too small compared to the whole world. There are so many geniuses in this world, and they are just a corner of the world. Don't worry, I will take them to get a lot of good things, and I have my own plans. Suzerain, you also know that I am always stable, don't you? Su Han said confidently. If you think like this, that's the best. I don't worry if you lead the team. Those little guys still need to practice hard, so that they can see the gap between their knowledge and talents outside, and they can grow better. Lin Yan said. Indeed, after going outside, you might be able to meet even more powerful geniuses. In this way, it will be more valuable for investment. Su Han thought in his heart at this time. At this time, he was also very excited. After all, the geniuses outside are probably stronger. In this open world, I don't know how many people have embarked on the road of cultivation. And this ancient god realm should be the core disciples sent by many places to search for resources. In this way, this may be another good opportunity to invest, so Su Han is also very excited by at the moment. Okay. Let's not talk about these, Su Xiaoyu, in the near future. You need to improve your strength and make yourself stronger, so that you can protect yourself inside. After all, you are going to lead them to go together, Lin Yan said. Why choose Su Han? Because only Su Han's age is similar to that group of young disciples, and Su Han's strength is very comprehensive and powerful, and his style of doing things is very calm. If he leads the team, it will also make the ancestors of various sects they feel relieved a lot. One of the deepest meanings is that Su Han's luck is very strong. He stayed in the Yaoyan sect, and in just a few months, Lin Yi broke through to the Earth's supreme realm, and even the sect's disciples all improved by leaps and bounds. The cultivation base is increasing day by day, and in this big competition, more than 10 places have been won. This short 10 days is as short as a white horse passing by, and soon, the agreed day has arrived. At this moment, all major sects have brought all their disciples to Yaoyan sect. The ancestors of those sects gathered here with the most powerful members of their sects. I really can't wait. It's the first time I've seen such a big battle. I'm curious about what's in there, Li Shuwen said with a very excited face. Now he dances and dances like a child who has just enlightened. Then what are you in a hurry for? It's just that we have just set off. It is said that the ancient burial god realm is in the extreme north, and this time it is said that it is not peaceful inside, Suhan said. He also knew that this time it was estimated that there were accidents, and he heard that many geniuses from other domains also came here this time. He probably wants to fight for opportunities with them, which also shows that something extraordinary has probably been born in the ancient god realm. I don't know what the people inside are like, and I don't know if they will fight or not. Li Shuwen's eyes were shining brightly, like a beast just out of the cage. He rubbed his palms together, clenched his fists, and his eyes were full of desire to fight, as if this time he didn't go there to hunt for treasure at all, but to find someone to fight. Seeing Li Shuwen in such a state, Su Han felt very helpless at this moment. I thought, why did you bring such a guy in? But I want to think about it, that Li Shuwen's strength is nothing to say, but his brain may not be very good. Su Han is still waiting and watching at this time, because he is waiting for a person, that is Li Wuxiang from Glacier Valley. It is already at this time, and he has not come yet? Even Fang Hangsen, the patriarch of their sect, has already arrived here, yet he hasn't appeared yet. Senior Fang. What's going on? Why hasn't he come yet? Didn't he make an appointment to gather again today? Could it be that he changed his mind and didn't plan to go? Su Han asked. If this guy really doesn't plan to go, it will be a big loss, and this is the only way to restore his character. He had put in so much effort before, just to get this guy back on the path of cultivation, but he didn't expect that he hasn't appeared yet. Does this mean that Ji Wuxiang has given up? This, Su Xiaoyu, I'm not too sure about this. It depends on him. I called him at the time, but he didn't seem to take my words to heart at all. If he doesn't want to come, no one can force him. Fang Hangsen also let out a long sigh, expressing his helplessness. Well, it seems that this guy is still a big trouble. I didn't expect to have reached this point. Has he still not changed his mind? Su Han was also a little disappointed at this time. He didn't expect that he had worked so hard, but he still hadn't hooked up this guy's desire for revenge. At this moment, outside the Yaoyan sect, there was a sudden cold breath. Everyone looked up, only to see Li Wuxiang in front of him. Every step he took was accompanied by ice under his feet. At this moment, his brows were covered with frost, his eyes were cold, and the powerful aura on his body seemed to signal his return. Seeing Li Wuxiang walking slowly, Fang Hangsen showed joy on his face. He thought this guy had given up, but he didn't expect him to come anyway. This shows that Li Wuxiang has successfully pulled himself together. It's here, Elder Su. Thanks to you this time. If it wasn't for you, this guy would really give me a headache. Fang Hanqi also said with emotion at this time. He didn't know how much effort he had spent in order to revive this guy's heart of cultivation, but there was still no way to impress him. Now, it was solved so easily. Okay, Elder Su, you are kind to this kid, and you have also given me a big gift to Ice River Valley. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, then Ice River Valley, will definitely help you. Fang Hangsen said in a very solemn tone. This was his promise, and at the same time, he felt extremely regretful that such a genius as Su Han had entered Lin Yan's sect. Ha ha ha, Senior Fang, there's no need to be like this. This is just a temporary act of kindness on my part. I just don't want to see such a genius gradually decline. Su Han looked at Fang Hangsen, who was very excited in front of him, and said very generously. After all, he has put a lot of effort into Li Wuxiang. For this investment, he has done countless things, including making alchemy, arousing his anger with words, and bringing it into the realm of the ancient gods. He has probably been planning for this time for a long time, but he must not fail, and the success of this investment may also bring him huge benefits. Since we're all here, let's go, Su Han said. At this time, under the leadership of the ancestors of the various sects, Su Han and his group embarked on the journey in a mighty way. Under the joint leadership of those ancestors of the sect, they came to this extreme north in an instant. Sure enough, the Earth Supreme is powerful. With such a cultivation level, one can tear apart the space and reach the goal in an instant. I believe that I will be able to set foot in such fields in the future. Chu Tianrui's eyes were full of admiration, and he spoke excitedly. His eyes are full of longing, and his eyes are extremely firm. He firmly believes that he will be able to become such a strong man in the future, even stronger than him. However, this extreme northern land is also like his name, with snowflakes falling, frost everywhere, and the howling cold wind, piercing like a sharp sword. This is the land of the extreme north. It's really steep, and it's so cold here. You know, we are already a powerful monk with a cultivation base that reaches the sky. Why do we still feel the cold? Feeling the biting cold wind blowing towards her face, Liang Yeshui said with a little doubt on her face. You must know that the cultivation level has reached their level, and they already have a body protected by true energy. The outside climate will not affect them much, but just standing on the land of the extreme north, they can feel the wave emanating from their bones. Came out icy cold. This made them puzzled, and everyone looked at Fang Hangsen in front of them, wanting to see what insights he had, and to see if he could give some answers. It seems that you have all felt the coldness of the extreme north. It seems that you have already felt the coldness of the extreme north. That's right, this extreme north is not as simple as it seems to you. It is rumored that this extreme north is the corpse of an ancient ice phoenix that fell. Made it. It is rumored that the ancient ice fire was attacked by some expert, and its soul was completely shattered, leaving only the powerful body full of ice-cold aura. But even though that ancient ice phoenix has fallen, his body still has endless power. The power of ice that is born in his body makes this extreme northern land forever covered with frost. Fang Tuxin said with a proud expression on his face at this time. So you mean that we are now standing on the body of that ancient beast? Li Shuan's brain hadn't turned the corner at this time. A shocked look appeared on his face, and his mouth couldn't close in shock. That's natural. However, this ferocious beast has already lost its spirit and soul. In other words, although he has no body, his soul has long since died, but his body has already been completely different from this beast. The lands of the north merged into one. So if you can feel the cold here in the extreme north, there is a high probability that you are affected by this ancient ice phoenix, Fang Hangsen said. I didn't expect that there would be such a secret in this extreme northern land. This time it was an eye-opener for me, but where is this ancient burial domain? Su Han said. That's right, I've been waiting here for so long. Where is the ancient god realm? Why hasn't it appeared yet? Li Wuxiang couldn't help it anymore at this time, and asked him now that he was very confused about where he could enter the ancient burial god realm. Don't worry, you can go in right away, young people need a little patience. After Fang Hangsen heard this, a smile appeared on his face, and then he smiled at the other ancestors of the other sects next to him. Immediately afterwards, the ancestors of their sects came out immediately, and then Lin Yan looked at the group of disciples below and said, Little guys, take a good look. The ancient god realm is about to appear, and you have to hurry up and go in. Remember, if you encounter any danger after going inside, smash the magic talisman I gave you in time. After pinching it, you can come out immediately. If you die inside, it's not worth the loss, remember? The disciples below also nodded. They naturally knew the importance of life. At this time the power of the ancestors of the sect above began to erupt. I only saw their hands forming seals, and different spiritual powers began to emerge in the sky. Immediately after they gathered together in the same direction, the void began to slowly shatter. Until, a black door slowly emerged from the void. The black door seemed to be tightly closed, and there was no sign of opening it at all. It has appeared, everyone, if you work harder, you will be able to open it. Lin Yan's face was very excited at this time, and he felt unprecedented enthusiasm and relaxation. That's natural, everyone, work together to push this door completely open, and then send these little guys in. The ancestor of Da Luo Jianzong's expression froze, and he spoke. Immediately afterwards, a more powerful force erupted from their bodies, and the endless spiritual power began to gather towards that black door. Open. Hurry up and go in now. Lin Yan shouted loudly in the sky. Lin Yan also gave Su Han a look. At this time, Su Han understood and led the disciples below into the simple gate. When they got close to the gate, a strong suction instantly sucked them away. And the ancestors of the various sects in the sky saw the strong suction force sucking them in, so he stopped the movements of his hands. At this moment, they breathed a sigh of relief, their bodies suddenly and slowly relaxed, and the expressions on their faces were even more relaxed than ever before. It's really not easy to push this door open at last. If you haven't reached the Supreme Realm, I'm afraid you'll have to take several pills to make up for it this time. Lin Yan said with lingering fear. That's right. Up to now, I can feel that this door is absorbing more and more spiritual power. I just felt that the endless power in my body is gathering towards that door. If I don't get them out in time if we send it in, I'm afraid our spiritual power will be sucked dry. Fang Hangsen recalled the situation just now, and said with lingering fear. Therefore, there have been some huge changes in it recently, and they must be careful in it, but what fortune they can get, it can only depend on their fate. The ancestor of Da Luo Jianzong said slowly. Okay, let's wait outside slowly, but this place is indeed a bit cold. Even though my cultivation base has reached the realm of the Supreme Being, I still feel the biting cold. Lin Yan touched his shoulder, and his body seemed to tremble for a while. This guy is still too weak, but this is a natural cultivation territory for us. Besides, before the ancient ice phoenix died, it was rumored to be a strong man in the supreme realm of the heavens. Your mere realm, is it possible that it can still resist its influence? Fang Yaozuan showed him a stern look. This guy. Give me a few words. You specialize in ice spiritual power, and your fate is much better than mine. Logically speaking, this should be your home field. You guys are just like me. The expression on Lin Yan's face at this time suddenly became very irritable, and he no longer had the previous calmness. The two of them were like explosive kegs. Even if they saved lives a little, they started a fierce quarrel. Now the ancestor of the Yujia sect and the old woman of the Liuli sect next to him showed helpless expressions on their faces. These two guys are really enemies. When they meet, they can fight no matter what the topic is, and they are already familiar with it. Okay, but this place is really magical. This place in the extreme north should be your territory. You have been exploring for so many years, haven't you discovered 10 traces of mysteries? The patriarch of Da Luo sword sect had a meaningful look on his face at this time. He looked at Fang Hangsen in front of him and seemed to want to know something from him. How can we detect anything? We must know that this is the corpse of a powerful man in the sky. What ability do we have to explore in depth? Just the aftermath emanating from him is enough for us to drink a pot.